are listening to the Retina UK London Peer Support Group meeting guest speaker presentation recorded Saturday, 20th of May 2023.
Liam, welcome to our London peer group meeting, and it's an absolute joy to have you join us today. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, your career, and what you're doing now with the Sight Loss Councils?
Hello, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here. So I am Liam O'Carroll and I work for the Thomas Pocklington Trust. My job title is Sight Loss Councils Coordinator for South London. And one of the reasons why this job and I work, dovetail is my lived experience, of course. So before I get round to talking more about the Sight Loss Councils in detail, perhaps I'll talk about what that lived experience is. So in terms of my sight loss journey, I have a hereditary eye condition, although we didn't know that when I was born in the 70s. I was approaching my 6th birthday when it was diagnosed as retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, whereupon immediately a change of school took place. I went from the usual standard local infant school to a infant school for partially sighted people, or the infants part of a school for partially sighted people in West London. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers John Aird School. That would be interesting, but that's where I went and had something of a whale of a time there. But obviously RP, in my case, was deteriorative, and over time, circumstances changed. I moved into secondary school and I was taken to a school in Coventry called Exhall Grange, which some people may know, but really not too bothered about the whole sight loss experience, as I didn't really know anything different until when I around about my 17th birthday, I think it was, when I discovered that one of my favorite, or my absolute favorite hobby, was no longer open to me in the same way, when I discovered I could no longer read, even with the best magnification that I knew about. That was the first time I started to really perhaps think negatively about the experience. That was a big change. Even before that, I was sliding into more of a blind identity than a partially sighted one, because I was encouraged to learn Braille at school. I was taught to use a long cane. Started off with the old guide cane, moved on to the long cane. And so perhaps this was the proving ground for a life as a blind person. But I still thought I was partially sighted, as opposed to blind at that time. The removal of the ability to read print with my own eyes through magnification obviously was a major setback and a major source of depression. However, I was still young and still had a lot of exciting things to discover about life. Left school, went to do a degree in English and drama, and because I was set on a career in the theatre and television, that's where I was hoping to go. It was during this period where I suppose I took a while to actually become a blind person. So the sight loss deterioration continued so slowly that I can't pinpoint when the transition from partial sight to blindness took place, because it's so gradual and fluctuating, although with a downward trajectory, you could say. But I suppose I reached a blind ballpark in my early 20s while at university, and I started to notice that the world assumed I was blind because of what they saw. So they saw a long cane. It might not just have been the long cane, but anyway, people would refer to me as blind, and I didn't like that. And I used to challenge that and say, no. I used to correct it and take control of it and say, no, I'm partially sighted. I obviously wasn't ready to identify as blind, or more than that, I think in my mind, I wasn't yet a blind person. But that was to change. Through my 20s, I started connecting more in the pursuit of connect a lot more with other disabled artists, and encountered a kind of political awakening. Things like rights. The 1990s was a decade where there was a lot of debate around the social model of disability versus the medical model of disability. It didn't start in the 90s, but I think it was still a raging direct action by people going on. So it's a good time to have an awakening about that and discovering positive way of looking at having a disability, that it was an identity, that you were a member of a community. And I suppose through my 20s, I suddenly started calling myself blind quite happily. Not just being comfortable with it, but actually sort of being quite, happy to say I'm a blind person, enjoying the company of other blind people, which perhaps I'd been lacking previously. Certainly at university, I was the only blind person in that context. And so over time, I started to realize that being blind was an identity I quite like. And I recognized that as a creative person, writing, for example, it gives you a lot of material. Trying to write comedy gags, for example, or writing entertaining articles, informative articles. It may be that without the blindness, I might never have gone down the creative path at all. We'll never know that, but it's quite possible. Blindness has given me insights into different ways of looking at the world. It can often be very funny. It can be frustrating. It can be depressing. But those powerful emotions are themselves useful drivers of creativity. When I'm very angry about something, I write really well. When I'm very sad about something, I write really well. It's also other intense things like being smitten, being in love with somebody is very intense. And that's no surprise that there's so much great poetry that's been written over the years about love. Because intense emotion, whatever it is, positive or negative, is incredibly an incredible driver of creativity. The next discovery about being blind was how much more fun I seem to have when I hang out with other blind people than I do with my sighted friends. It sounds a bit harsh on your sighted friends. It doesn't mean to be. It's just that there's something different about the experience, and that took a while for me to pick up on. And I suddenly realized, I'm just laughing more with the blind friends than I am with the sighted friends. And there's no inclusivity issues with your blind friends that you get with your sighted friends. Your sighted friends don't even realize they're not including you. They can't help it. It's totally forgivable. But in the end, though, where is the more fun had? So I think that blind identity and membership of a community is valuable. And then, of course, new research was publicized in the media about treatments for people with retinitis pigmentosa. I got wind of some of these things, and people would say, why don't you look into this? Apparently you can get gene therapy. And then I look into it. It says, yeah, but that gene therapy is for people with Leber's amaurosis. Have I got that? I thought I had retinitis pigmentosa. I dug out of the 1980s from when I had genetic counselling when I was at school. And strike me pink, it said I had Leber's amaurosis. So I thought, yeah, give me the gene therapy. So I went through and got referred and investigated it. And although it took me a year because I was very lazy about it, because I wasn't really that motivated. But when I got to finally to see the specialists and they examined me and everything, they said, actually, you haven't got Leber's amaurosis. You've got retinitis pigmentosa. So gene therapy is not for you. You can't have it. So it's good to iron that out. Why does this piece of paper say I've got Leber's amaurosis? Oh, never mind. But they said there are other things going on. Then someone said something about stem cells. And I looked into that, and apparently that wasn't for me either. So no, you can't have stem cells, not for you. But then there was a third thing, because I think I asked for the wrong thing when I was asking to be referred through my GP. Anyway, it ended up someone saying that you could actually get implants with your retinal dystrophy. You could be eligible for some implants. So I found myself being spoken to by a specialist at a particular well-known hospital, whereupon they said the implants aren't very good. You could have them, but they often last about a month, and then they unravel a bit, and they're not very good at the moment. You may want to wait until they get better. Anyway, you do realize you have some major cataracts that would need to be taken out for any of this stuff to work. Not much point in having implants if you've still got the cataracts. So they said you can have them out, no problem. And I was a bit hesitant about it, and thought, well, maybe we'll wait for the implants to get better. And I went back to my old sort of disinterested lack of motivation around the medical things, because I'd gone 25 years without engaging with ophthalmology at all, until someone said about the gene therapy, and I started, investigating it in a half-hearted and slow manner. So I'm where I am, and if these treatments, which they're bound to eventually, maybe after I'm dead or something, but would I be hesitant? I think I'd be hesitant about changing if the offer was, take this treatment and you become fully sighted. Just imagine hypothetically that what's on offer is full sight. Presumably with the full sight of a person of my age, in my 50s, I get 50-something full sight. They wouldn't be giving me, say, 13-year-old boy full sight. Surely that must be impossible. Or am I being too pessimistic there? Would I take it? Because I'd have to contemplate a potential loss of identity, to say nothing of a loss of pip. But seriously, yeah, a loss of identity. Would I find that easy, or is it just another adventure? It's just another twist and turn in life's narrative. But anyway, that's all hypothetical, because we're not at that stage medically or scientifically yet. Along the way, I mentioned earlier about pursuing the career in theatre and television. I've had some great experiences, and as a writer of articles, and also as an actor in television, theatre, and a little bit of radio thrown in along the way there. And most of the jobs actually are portraying blind people. Not so many jobs playing sighted people, which is fine, just as long as there's loads of blind roles going around. And that's the question: are there enough? Are there enough blind roles to sustain a career for anybody? But it's been quite an experience. I think it started off doing a documentary about Braille. That was my first actual paid role. That was then followed by a walk-on in a sitcom called Desmond's, which rather inconveniently took place just before my final exams at university. So that was a bit stressful, but it was so exciting and incredible to be appearing in Desmond's that I couldn't possibly turn that down for the sake of my degree. Such is the obsessive nature of an actor. Then there was a few various other, I won't mention all the jobs obviously, but the highlights. There was the episode of Father Ted as the blind priest on the aeroplane. They didn't have a proper name for this priest, which is a shame. Makes me wonder if it was an afterthought part, because a lot of the other priests that appear get given funny names. My name in the script said young shifty priest, and in the Radio Times and the TV Times it said priest with sunglasses. So I've got multiple names for that character. But so that was your Father Ted, and then there are a few more like comedy sketch shows and things, and the big break, I suppose, was playing the blind English teacher and housemaster in 24/7 for Granada, which was a children's soap, a teen soap set in a boarding school. So I got, out of 26 episodes, I think I was in 19 episodes of that. So there were 2 series. Sadly, there was never a 3rd series, or at least as far as I know, there wasn't a 3rd series. Maybe there was, and I just wasn't asked to be in it. But no, I don't think there was a 3rd series. But that was a great thing to be involved in. Filming on location in Yorkshire and in Manchester, and also studio work in Manchester as the Royal Air Force passes over my shed. Then after 24/7, there was Casualty, there was Comedy Lab, and then which brings us, I've mentioned some of the theatre work and a couple of radio plays for Radio 4, and then there's all the less well-known stuff, the stuff that the public would never know, the foreign theatre work and role play stuff for medical exams and all the little bits and pieces that actors fill in with. The great thing about it is the variety, the self-employment, self-sufficiency, and the variety of experience. You could be doing something like a TV program one week, and then the next week you'd be either doing nothing, or you frees you up to do other things like writing, or listening to a test match, or maybe some like a medical exam role play, little jobs like that, little ads or something, voice work. But that brings us eventually to more recently what a lot of people tend to recognize me in the street for, want selfies with me, is the role of not an RAF pilot, but of Mr. Greencock, the piano tuner, in Friday Night Dinner. And that's probably the role that's had the biggest impact on me in terms of public recognition and people being nice to me because they recognize me, and they seem to particularly enjoy that episode, which is very nice of them. I like to think it's because of me. It might just be a brilliant episode that happens to have me in it, or it could be a brilliant episode because it had me in it. I don't know. But I believe there's one of these memes. There's a meme for sarcasm, and it's a picture of me as Mr. Greencock in Friday Night Dinner, and that's what people use as some kind of symbol to indicate sarcasm in social media. Apologies for the loud aerial noise cacophony there. I don't know what's going on, but anyway. So then there was Friday Night Dinner, and then of course there was Off Their Rockers. Off Their Rockers was an example of how you go from one job to another, where you're actually first of all Friday Night Dinner, where you're playing a role, a character in a story, in an actual sitcom watched and loved by lots of people, and then the next time you're in a show where it's a hidden camera playing tricks on the public kind of show. And this is a good one to do for me because it brought me back down to earth, because I had to play different people, kind of spoofing the public, behaving in a certain way, and so that the camera could capture the reactions of members of the public. Now, of course, had I been really famous, they wouldn't have used me because the public mustn't recognize me. So it showed that despite being in Friday Night Dinner and Casualty and Far Ted and Desmond's, nobody knows who I am. I'm not famous, I'm not a star. So it disabused me of any kind of ideas that I was incredibly important as an actor. So the fact that I was offered that role, so I was able to play my tricks and perform my stuff on unwitting members or unsuspecting members of the public, and they didn't recognize me, didn't know who I was. Off Their Rockers is normally to do with elderly people playing tricks on the public and doing funny things, but this was a kind of disability version where instead of elderly people, it was a kind of an assortment of different disabled people. Then finally there was Don't Take My Baby, which was and more drama. Most of my stuff has been kind of comical on television, but this, apart from Casualty, that's not supposed to be funny, and it wasn't funny, although I enjoyed it. The Don't Take My Baby was a documentary where a young disabled couple, blind father, wheelchair using mother, have a baby together, and they have to fight for the right to be allowed to keep that baby, to look after the baby and bring it up themselves. I was the blind father of the blind father, if that makes sense. So I was the young blind lad who was the father of the baby in question. He had a blind father, and that was me. So I'd become a grandfather on telly. And it was the first time I heard myself audio described, because audio description wasn't being used on TV when I was recording my first shows, Desmond's and Father Ted and things. So I heard myself being audio described, and I found out what I looked like, which was quite interesting. How much I'd changed since the days when I could look in the mirror. Slightly unsettling, disconcerting, in fact. So much for the acting career. I working for Thomas Parkinson Trust now as a Sight Loss Council coordinator, and I think it would be a good time to talk about what Sight Loss Councils are and what they do. So a Sight Loss Council, can I call them SLCs as an acronym? An SLC consists of blind and partially sighted people who meet and plan how to use their lived experience to make positive change for their community. They're local, and we have over 18 Sight Loss Councils in England, in all different parts of England. And where we're concerned in London, we have a London-wide one, and we have a Southwest London one. So there are actually two in London at the moment. So one covering 6 boroughs in the Southwest, and the other one covering all the other boroughs. And there are going to be more Sight Loss Councils, including potentially in other parts of the UK. What do they do? So they work with organisations to raise awareness about the needs of blind and partially sighted people. The aim is to improve accessibility of services. So they are a campaigning organisation, Sight Loss Councils. However, their approach to campaigning is a collaborative one, rather than confrontational or taking direct action. Not that I'm saying anything against that approach, but our approach, if we feel, has to be collaborative, because we're trying to establish long-term relationships with organisations. So long as we have a relationship and a dialogue with them, they will actually listen and take on board our input. So we seek to make strong and friendly relationships with these organizations. So if they like us, they'll talk to us, they'll listen to us, and take on board what we're saying, which hopefully will mean change, positive change for us. What kind of organizations are we talking about? Well, transport providers such as TfL, Govia Thameslink, rail companies, bus companies, providers or operators of e-bike and e-scooter schemes, local councils, visitor attractions, leisure facilities such as gyms. We had a forum recently with Better Gyms, in which we had a very positive event with them, where they work with us to encourage and highlight how they can support the involvement of blind and partially sighted people in the gym, in using it, and meant awareness, VI awareness training from us, and we do that. So we will raise awareness by actual giving VI awareness training to organisations. We take part in testing and research. So, for example, a transport company might be proposing a change to a bus route. They might want our opinion, our feedback on how how that will impact on blind passengers, for example. So we'll walk routes, we'll use apps and facilities and feedback on these ideas. Then what else do we have here? So we're there to consult. We will consult and give our recommendations, our advice, and we may urge, real caution about some of these things. We'll be positive. If we're positive about something, we'll say so. If we have reservations, we think this could be a problem for blind and partially disabled people, we'll be honest about that too. We participate in other forms of consultation. For example, we can actually collaborate in the writing of documents or press releases or messages that organizations need to get out there, but they want our involvement. So we can influence them to make sure they use the right language, they say the right things, they have the right emphasis, the right tone. For example, we might be asked to write the wording for a message that goes in an app that, say, a transport operator is using. For example, an app for an e-scooter operator. They might want to use an app and they want their users to be more responsible in their use of e-scooters. So there's going to be a message in the app written, or partly written by us, urging that user of the scooter to think positively about blind people, partially sighted people, and to be considerate in terms of the way they park or ride the vehicle. So we're very involved. Sometimes it's writing things for people, sometimes it's just feeding back verbally, and very often it's taking part in a test of equipment or apps and experiences, changes. Our members of the Sight Loss Councils, they do it for various reasons. They just strolling through some of my notes here. They tell us that the reasons they volunteer to take part in the Sight Loss Council is because they want to make a difference to benefit others, and they want to increase accessibility, and they want to meet like-minded people and to build their own confidence, but also to have a voice and to feel valued. And having a voice obviously is the key thing here. We want the voices and thoughts and experiences of blind and partially sighted people not to be missed, not to be drowned out. We want them to be heard by the organizations that we work with. If they hear our voice, then we hope that that will mean that we're included in decisions. We're included in any new ideas or changes or new policies, or that they won't take place without our voices being taken into account. So that's what the Sight Loss Councils are there to ensure. I was listing some of the organizations that we work with. I've left out some as well. I mean, they work quite a lot of good work done with visitor attractions such as theatres and museums as well. And many of these organizations are keen to engage. Sometimes we approach an organization and they're perhaps a bit disinterested, maybe they're a bit reluctant, maybe they're just too busy, maybe they just haven't thought of it before. Getting people to talk to you can be a challenge, getting doors to open. But there are organizations who are very proactive and keen, and they come to us and say that we want to do something. We want to do something positive. Can you help us to do that? And yes, we can help them. If you're interested in getting involved, you can always find out all about us on our website, which is www.sightlosscouncils.org.uk, and there's an email. You can email us, which is info@sightlosscouncils.org.uk if you've got any inquiries, and it'd be great to hear from you. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Liam. That was excellent. And I'm now going to call you Young Shifty Priest. I think that name's just fabulous. And thank you so much. You know, there's so many things. It's such a varied career you've had as well. Does anyone have any questions for Liam? And feel free to just unmute and ask a question. I'm going to check because we did mute people, and in case people are finding it difficult to unmute, let's see if we can just ask everyone to unmute.
It's Diana. Can I ask a question about the Sight Loss Council? And you were talking about transport issues. Have you had any input for the cycle super highways, in particular where the highway is going to go, and you'll have bus stops which are on islands, and the bicycle, you'll have to cross the bicycle way to get to the bus stop and get on the bus, which some people see as quite a problem for blind and partially sighted people.
Yes, and absolutely. So these cycle lanes that divide the bus shelter from the bus, we are basically opposed to those. So, you know, we're quite clear that the cyclist councils don't agree with floating bus stops, those bus stop bypasses, the different terminology, the various versions of it. You know, we are opposed to them. We recognise that they're not a good idea. Certainly not for blind and partially sighted people, and we do make that clear. That's an ongoing conversation, and it's going to be, I'm sure something will happen, but it's going to be quite hard. It's going to be quite a hard battle, that one, to make change there. But it's ongoing, and it is our position that we think they are they're too dangerous and too impractical for as far as we're concerned, blind and partially sighted people.
And older people as well, you know, who are a bit sort of frail and take time to get across to the bus stop.
Yes, there's all kinds of reasons why they're a bad idea, and in all kinds of people, not just blind and partially sighted people, who would find them a problem.
Prams,
a problem.
Yeah.
Thanks, Diane. Does anyone else have a comment or a question for Liam about his acting career, sight loss councils, anything that you've heard? And I've got to say, Liam, the beginning of your kind of talk, you know, I think really resonated with me, and I'm sure it does with a lot of people, just the acceptance of your sight loss and coming to terms with it. And yeah, it resonated quite a lot.
Yes, and quite liking it, you know, as well. Yeah, although I do recognise that I'm fortunate in that I was given plenty of time to adjust to it from a young age, and I know that's not everyone's experience, and I totally recognise and respect the different circumstances that different people have, and I suppose I have to count myself quite fortunate that you know, I was given that time to adjust over a slow process.
Yeah. Do you have any hands up or anything in the chat at the moment?
Keith has got his hand up.
Keith, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, great listening to you speak, Liam. It's you've opened my eyes about certain aspects of my journey, and my journey really has only just begun, but you've been through so much more, and it's so enlightening to hear your thoughts and how you remain positive. No, just brilliantly, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Keith.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Anyone else? No, that's fine. And if you do have something a little bit later on, you can always ask a question, and just double checking that. Have we asked everyone to mute? Because I know I'm conscious that we muted everyone before, and just want to make sure no one's struggling to come off mute if we just ask everyone? Then they've got that little pop-up screen. Well, if we don't have anything for now for Liam, I just want to say thank you so much. I think it was very interesting. Yes, like Keith said, very enlightening, and just your outlook and yeah, your career and how you've made your way to Thomas Pocklington Trust as a Sattlers coordinator. It's just been very interesting to hear your story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Come and join us and meet the Retina UK team at our 2023 Professionals and Annual Conference held this year in London at the University of Westminster, Marylebone campus opposite Madame Tussauds on Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th of June. More information and how to register is available on our events page on our website. Thanks very much for your support. We look forward to seeing you there. We hope you have enjoyed this recording. If you have any questions, queries, or wish to leave any feedback, then please leave it in the comments section below. Alternatively, you can send your inquiries to info@retinauk.org.uk. Contact us via the telephone on 01280 821 334 or call our helpline on 0300 111 4000, which is open Monday to Friday 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. If you would like to know more about our local peer groups, when your next meeting will be held, or if you wish to get involved in creating your own group, or would like to know more about our services that Retina UK provides, then please visit our information and support page on our website www.retinauk.org.uk and navigate to our local peer group page. Thanks again for listening. We hope to see you again soon. Take care and bye for now.